We're live. We're recording right now, Thursday, May 8th at like 8 p.m. Mountain Time right now. Nate Pickens, UC Riverside combo guard, commits to BYU. Chase, initial thoughts.
I think it's a great pickup. It's exactly what we've been waiting for. This backup point guard. It was who we've been expecting. It's not necessarily him exactly. We weren't that tuned in, but his style of player. And so for BYU to get it done at this point in time, honestly, fairly early, maybe earlier than we anticipated, Karter. I don't know about you. Is cool. And we saw videos, right? They're already practicing. They're already all in the gym. They're already all getting used to each other and preparing for the season. I think it's big to have your team together this early. And I think Nate Pickens himself is just another great. I mean, we don't want to sound like we're just hyping up this coaching staff and particularly the recruiting staff, but they've hit home runs with all these guys that they've grabbed.
Yeah, that's the thing. I tweeted this out as well. Every one of these people they're grabbing in the portal and recruiting and whatnot, it just seems like perfect fits. And it's what kind of goes back to what Kevin Young said in his press conference when Yegor declared. He goes, look, every move we're going to make in the portal is going to be very thought out and very calculated and exactly what we want. And that's what we're seeing. All of these dudes, it makes perfect sense how they're going to fit into this team. Now, there are a lot of guys on this team. Now, Pickens plays a specific role to where he's going to get a decent amount of playing time, especially if a guy like Rob Wright gets into foul trouble. We'll get more into that part in a little bit. But I love the fit. I love all the fits that they're getting in right now. There's just so much spacing and shooting. They're going to be a nightmare to defend in college basketball this year. I mean, we might be looking at the number one offense in the country next season.
I know, it seems like all they're adding is like these dudes that can shoot, that can just flat out put the ball in the hoop. And I think it's clear that's their philosophy. And we legitimately might be looking at one of the most talented and highest scoring offenses in college basketball with just all these guys that they've brought in. And Nate Pickens, obviously no exception. Just to read it off a little bit, I'm sure everyone's listening has heard some basic things, but he shot dang near 40% from three last season. But that's not just his game. I think you see that number and you get real excited, but it doesn't even stop there. You go watch some film like Karter and I did, you see that he gets to the basket as well. He's not afraid to play bigger than he actually is. He is a pretty decently sized guard himself. He's not afraid. I mean, like I saw like post ups from him, right, where he felt like he has the mismatch and he was able to be stronger than the other guy and get his body in there and finish at the rim. And he's got great instincts offensively and even defensively on that side of the ball. But he really is a 3-level scorer with all the athleticism that you're looking for in a point guard or even a 2 guard if that's what he ends up playing in certain situations. And so, right, he's unique, and it seems like every new guy on this roster is someone that we'd like to say BYU's never seen before. But he's another guy where you're like, he just doesn't fit the BYU mold that they've created, but they're completely breaking through that stigma and creating a whole new type of team here.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think the role he ends up playing on this team, obviously, I think he's going to be the backup point guard. But he can play off the ball, too. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to see him playing off Rob Wright at times and whatnot, depending on how things are going in a game and what kind of defense do you need, what's the personnel that you need, what are the matchups and everything. And then on top of that as well, I think he plays I think he's the perfect blend of, okay, we're going to try and replace the good things about what Trey Stewart did and the good things about what Dallin Hall did. I think they might have gotten that in the mix of one player because I think he can run an offense well enough, especially as a backup point guard. He also can drive to the basket and score, but he also can bring that energy that Trey Stewart would on the defensive end. And so I think it's exactly what they needed, and they kind of got a 2-for-1 deal with what they're looking at because, you know, let's say Dallin Hall were to come back and play a backup point guard role behind Rob Wright. Well, Rob Wright's going to be playing a lot more minutes than I even think Yegor did throughout the season. So I expect Rob Wright to be playing close to 30 minutes a game. And so the minutes aren't going to be there as much as, you know, I don't think, you know, I feel like Dallin and Yegor, they played, 20, 25 minutes a game together and whatnot. I just didn't think there was enough room for 2 more guards to have playing time is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and what Nate Pickens has going for him, and what I think you already also kind of mentioned, is that he can play like the 2 as well. Like he's not locked down to just a point guard position. So if it is like Rob Wright's going to be playing 30 out of these 40 minutes, it's like, okay, then Nate Pickens, all you have is 10. there's opportunities to throw other lineups out there. You can go small ball, put him at the 2, and Rob Wright in there and try and just run and gun and use speed and athleticism there. If you put even like AJ at the 5 or something like that, have all the shooting in the world on the court, I think they're going to be able to mess around with some matchups here. I love his versatility, his ability to do a bunch of different things. I don't think he played point guard primarily at UC Riverside. I don't think that was his starting role. I think he was able to do it in spots for them. So it's going to be a little bit different role for him. But again, I think he has the tools and the skill set to fit in it almost anywhere.
Yeah, there does seem to be a slight little recruiting strategy of, oh yeah, this guy balled out against us. Yeah, come on down. Come on down to Provo. We like what we saw in that one game at the Marriott Center. He had 18, shot 3 of 4 from 3, 6 of 10 from the field against BYU.
He was a big part, Carter. I mean, you and I were at that game, obviously, and we were all of a sudden like, and if you recall watching, it was like a 6-point game all of a sudden with like 2 minutes to go. And we're like, wait, what the heck is happening? And a big part of that comeback was Nate Pickens. He was 3 for 4 from the 3-point line. It was just hitting big shots there at the end. And I can tell the whole team, and shout out UC Riverside for that performance. I think they were one of the better. I mean, I think they went NIT this season, but like they weren't scared of BYU or the moment. They were comfortable in that gym. And Nate Pickens, most of all, I mean, he took, if I'm not mistaken, I think he took like 19 shots, Carter. Like he wasn't afraid to just chuck the rock up. And you need that sort of mentality if you're going to play big minutes in a Big 12 basketball team and try and win stuff. Is look, I'm that dude. I'm bad. I don't care who I'm playing, where I'm at. Like he was going to go do his thing, and they almost pulled it off against BYU. Thankfully for the BYU team, and that was early on. And now they evolved so much in this season that they didn't end up blowing that game. That wouldn't have been a pretty one on the resume, but you gotta love what you see from him when a guy comes to Provo and he knows how to hang. He knows how to shoot in that gym.
Yeah, I know he was efficient in that game. He was 6 of 10.
Then I was completely dead wrong. So I'm glad I have you as my co-host.
Yeah, no, he was great in that game and everything. But the other thing I like about this edition as well is it allows BYU to throw, like kind of like you said, a bunch of different lineups out there. But also, there's a game where, hey, you're playing against Houston now. You can throw a super physical lineup, whether it's Pickens, even Richie Saunders, Diamande, Kennard Davis, Kaba Keita, AJ, who now you can throw a bunch of physical dudes into a five guy lineup, and you're not going to get bullied around by Houston as much. So I think they can throw so many different lineups, so much shooting and so much spacing on this team. It's going to be so much fun. And kind of branching off of the Nate Pickens point now is going into next season. I think a big key of this is, I know I'm a Duke fan and whatnot, and I pinpoint a lot of things back to Duke, but I think Cooper Flagg's unselfishness this season was the reason why Duke was so good, and I think that's going to be a huge point with AJ going into next season is how unselfish is he with this team? I think he will be. We've talked to people on the coaching staff. They say, hey, he's a lot more of an unselfish player than people realize. He does like to pass the ball, and he's a very good passer. People don't realize that about his game. They see all the flashy dunks and the scoring and everything. I think him being unselfish in bigger moments is going to be super key, because the way this offense goes and flows is, look, the ball can't stick with this team, or else it just gets totally out of rhythm. AJ's good enough where he can play out of rhythm, but a lot of these other guys, they got to be more into rhythm.
Yeah, it's going to be big for the chemistry of the team. That's why I said it's a big thing that they're practicing right now. As little as that sounds, it's pivotal. And you can, but you'd like to not start out slow like you did this last season with BYU. And it was so obvious the product on the court was a little bit discombobulated and they weren't coalescing in the right way that they were towards the end of the season. And that's just growing pains. It took a minute. And so here you have almost a completely different team. You're only returning 3 guys who even got minutes, right? And Richie Saunders, Kaba Keita, and Dawson Baker, and then a couple other guys who are looking to jump into bigger roles. But being able to band together as a team and learn each other's games, and also not be selfish in how many minutes you're getting, and things like that are going to be huge. We talked about, maybe it was like a couple months ago, the only thing that could tear this BYU team down is is the personal pride in the locker room, right? Are you going to actually care about winning more than you care about your own stats, whatever? And so you need guys that are going to buy into that. And one of the great things about Nate Pickens, just to bring him up again, this is his senior season. He has a lot of experience playing in college basketball, and joining a team who's in need of that, right? Your starting point guard is going to be a true sophomore. Your best player is going to be a true freshman. You do have obviously some experience with Richie Saunders and Keba Keita, but you're going to be playing with guys who this is all new to. And so bringing a guy like Pickens with all the experience he has, especially playing just at different places, different coaches, different styles, different gyms, is going to be huge.
Yeah, 1,000%. A couple other things. Let's talk about kind of the scheduling for next season a little bit. It got announced that Clemson will be playing in Madison Square Garden against BYU in the Jimmy V Classic. UConn, Florida is the other game. It just seems like BYU's barely missing out on the marquee matchup in these doubleheaders where it's going to be Florida versus Arizona in Vegas, and Nova BYU is going to be the opener down there in Las Vegas to start the season as well. The schedule for next season's a little interesting. Like, I like how they are playing more Power 5 competition, and it's not done yet. I expect at least 2 more Power 5 matchups to be solidified here soon. But Nova, and then the MTE in Orlando between Georgetown, Dayton, and Miami, and then Clemson. It sounds better, to be honest. Look, Kevin Willard's at Villanova. They're going to be better than they were with Kyle Neptune the year before. You don't know. Honestly, I hope they get to play against Miami because I think Miami's going to be a really good team this year. They got a lot of new pieces coming, basically an entirely new team with a new coach down there. And then Clemson, I was a little disappointed with Clemson because it's not going to be as good of a Clemson team as last year. Brad Brunell's a great coach, but I want to see a marquee matchup, man. I think we deserve to see A.J. Debinsa play against one of the Blue Bloods, against one of the top dogs in college basketball. I want to see BYU really, really, really tested in the non-con, and they're going to be tested in these games. I'm not saying those are bad teams by any means, but I want to see them play the top of the top. My ideal scenario, to be honest, I know I say Duke all the time. I want to see BYU Kentucky. I know that's not going to happen. I know Mark Pope's not scheduling that game. He's not getting near BYU with a 10-foot pole, but I want to see it. That would feed so many families, Chase.
It'd feed every family, I think. Yeah, I think we'd end with hunger there. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's too brash of us to say that we're a little disappointed right now in some of those. It's
still being solidified, so I don't want to poo-poo on it too much.
Yeah, and look, and it's a step up from playing Pacific Life. It's just this is AJ. Like,
I think they're playing Geico next year.
Like, yeah. I mean, State Farm bowed out, so they got to figure someone else out.
Yeah, State Farm. We thought we were going to get that home and home with State Farm, but
yeah. Well, I think the fact that we don't have to return and go out there is actually pretty huge.
Yeah. The other thing about the schedule is they better buy out of this game against Wyoming. Do not go to Laramie.
Yeah, I mean,
buy out of that game. Pay, whatever the number is, pay it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather go and play State Farm than go to play in Laramie.
I'd rather go play at one of these small 3-on-3 carpet churches than go play in Laramie.
That sounds like a good time. Should we get a run together? No, but we want to see a marquee matchup, man. Like, we're holding out for Duke. We're holding out for North Carolina. One of these teams, man, that's just something crazy that has been on our radar for months now as the season's kind of been ended and schedule's starting to leak a little bit. It's not over yet, right? We still have a chance to see it, and there are some moves being made behind the scenes that I think not all of us are aware of. But at the end of the day, it's still exciting to get some ACC competition, some Big East competition in these big venues, in these big events. They will be nationally televised, and a lot of people will be tuned in for it. You just, you can't ask for it all. Maybe we're just spoiled. We think we just deserve it all. But this is the best player, coming into college basketball. So you'd think that they're going to find a way to sneak one of these, or at least sneak another matchup where they really, really get to showcase him against another one of the great teams in the country.
Yeah, I just want to see him play in a primetime game against one of the top blue bloods in the country, and it can be this marquee matchup. When you get to see a couple years ago, you see like Paolo versus Chet and, these 1 versus 2 recruits. I think, how they do the NBA Summer League, how that Friday night, the marquee games, draft pick number 1 versus draft pick number 2. They need to do that for college every year. I know Darren Peterson at Kansas is the number 2 recruit, and they'll play each other in conference play. It's like, okay, we'll go to number 3. Like, let's have these guys play against each other. These are going to be the top picks in the NBA draft. It only makes sense from a TV standpoint of let's get our top guys playing against each other in this sport.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes it sweet for us too. Like, not just TV. It makes us too get to watch these. I mean, like, the most tuned in is when they have that tournament, when Duke, UNC, Michigan State, and Kansas get together and they all play. Like, everyone watches those. You know why? Because the best players are there playing against the best coaches at the best programs. And I think BYU, they don't have the pedigree, but this season they're going to be preseason ranked in the top 10, have the best player. Like, they deserve one of those matchups, at least one. I mean, come on.
I wouldn't be surprised once people start to catch on. And shout out our guy John Fanta. He's taking some heat from some BYU fans for putting BYU at 17. I need to talk to Fanta about that one, but brutal list right there. I mean, I can explain. Yeah, we actually should have Fanta on. He's about to have a kid, so maybe not. He might be out of
Bring the kid on. We'll have the kid explain his dad.
The kid's like 3 weeks old, and it's like, I don't know. I'm worried about BYU's defense and some certain matchups. They need to take it to the basket more. They're he's just reiterating what we always say.
If Brody Kozlowski can just step it up,
it's Townsend triple hitting the portal. That's why I had BYU at 17. What if Fanta said that?
It'd be gold.
I'd be like, all right, man, this dude's way more tapped in than I realized.
Yeah.
But everybody's going to have BYU in their top 10 going into this season. And then there's going to be a lot of people, I think, even putting BYU number 1 in the country. I think Gary Parrish over at CBS had them at number 3 in his way too early top 25. As these portal additions come in and we get to see rosters finalize, BYU is going to be, I would say, in 80 to 90% of people's top 5s. And I really think it's not a far-fetched idea to say that BYU can be the best team in the country next year.
Not at all. This is the roster they're pretty much working with. And I tell you what, I see the vision. I like what Kevin Young's doing. I like the momentum. And I like everything I'm seeing, man. This has the potential to be something really special.
Well, think about this. Think about trying to defend this BYU team. Everybody on the floor can shoot outside of Kaba Keita. You're going to have to guard, Richie Saunders is wide open. Okay, got to close that on him. Rob Wright, he can score from anywhere on the court. Meanwhile, you got the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft in AJ DeBanza. You got to guard him as well. Or you're going to have a guy like Kennard Davis or one of these other spot-up shooters. Like, they can space the floor so well. Everything fits so well with this roster. And you just can't. November can't come soon enough, Chase. We're going to be saying this every podcast now, and it's only May 8th. It's only May.
Yeah, it's actually pretty sad. I don't even know what we're gonna be holding on to. I mean, that clip BYU basketball posted was like a hit of cocaine. Like, I needed it for just to hold me over, just a little bit of a taste, man. Like, got me hyped.
Yo, we're gonna be sitting here breaking down film from a Nebraska exhibition game like it's a Sweet 16 matchup.
Yeah, and hopefully this summer, we get some interviews and stuff, guys. And I know you guys are. Shout out everyone who keeps listening to us. Like, honestly, we don't even know how we go this long sometimes. But it might be a long summer.
No, we'll be all right. It does help. We keep just getting news fed in right now. But I think we'll start getting news about the 2026 class. I mean, we know that. Look, they wanted to finalize the roster. 99% of the roster by the end of this week. They wanted to be done with the 2025 class and recruiting and just want to put all their focus in on 2026. And so we'll get a lot more news about 2026 guys here very soon, I think. And there's just so much to look forward to. I genuinely cannot wait. Another thought I had. This is just a random prediction for next season, but I just want to manifest this now, May 8th, 2025. Next season, I know how the NCAA works. I know how the NCAA tournament committee works. I know them in and out. Didn't I say Carolina would make the tournament all the way back in January? Bubba Cunningham running this show. You guys know what I'm talking about. But The NCAA tournament committee, I can promise you this right now, BYU next season will be a 1 or a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. You know who's going to be in the 8, 9, 7, 10 game? The Virginia Cavaliers. And we're going to get a rematch of Dallin Hall and the Virginia Cavaliers playing against BYU in the second round of the tournament. I'm just letting you know that right now. That is how it's going to play out next season.
I love it. Write it. Book it. Write it down.
I know how this works, Chase. It happens every year.
I mean, you are tapped in. I think you just hate UNC. I think that was part of that prediction from this last season.
No, but you agree with me. I mean, come on. All right, that does it from us today. Make sure to follow. Make sure to subscribe at Church Ball Pod and everything. Field of 68 Podcast Network on the YouTube channel. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, 5-star review, hit that follow button at Church Ball Pod on everything. We'll be back next week, hopefully with an interview for you guys. Hopefully the news just keeps coming in, Chase. We can keep putting out podcasts every single week and everything. But